Hello and welcome to another episode dedicated to Warhammer 40k meets AI, the series where we explore the lore and history of the grimdark future while using AI to generate some art from the universe. In this episode, we will focus on the Astra Militarum, also known as the Imperial Guard, the largest and most diverse fighting force of the Imperium of Man. We will learn about their origins, organization and tactics. Also we will briefly review the most famous regiments that have fought in countless wars across the galaxy. All the images you will see in this video are generated by Midjourney version 5.1, a powerful AI tool that can create realistic and detailed visuals from text descriptions. So sit back and enjoy. The Astra Militarum, commonly known as Imperial Guard, is the primary fighting force of the Imperium, so numerous in size that even the Departmento Munitorum cannot place a figure on the number of guardsmen under arms at any one time. The lists of new recruits and toll of casualties can run into the millions in a single day. It would be unfeasible trying to put any exact number on the strength of the Guard. However, it is believed that there must be many billions of guardsmen, divided into millions of regiments. This absolute numeracy provides the Guard with its main power, their ability to deploy in numbers that, eventually, result in victory. Attacking in seemingly endless influxes across battle zones, charging forth under the cover of massive barrages and delivering massed lasgun volleys. In the Guard the individual human soldier may appear a lost thing, almost forgotten. Yet the actions of these anonymous soldiers daily decide the fate of worlds. The Guard forms the very backbone of the Imperium. Without it, mankind would surely perish. Whilst regular guardsmen are hardly the equals of space marines, fighting neither with the advantages of genetic enhancement or the most powerful personal weaponry, the Guard possesses the courage and the manpower to face and annihilate the enemies of the Emperor across the galaxy. Origins of the Astra Militarum. The Astra Militarum can trace its origin back to the days of the Great Crusade, several millennia ago, when it was a somewhat different organization known as the Imperial Army. Following the events of the Horus Heresy, however, the Imperial Army was split into two organizations, the Astra Militarum and the Imperial Navy. This was done to prevent the possibility of large-scale rebellions occurring again, as the new regulations ensured that the link between fleet and army was severed. Astra Militarum structure. The Astra Militarum's fighting forces are organized into largely autonomous regiments. These regiments are raised by the worlds of the Imperium that have been classified as fit for such a purpose. These regiments can be sent anywhere in the galaxy, potentially serving in designated combat zones for years at a time. It is not considered likely that any guardsman will return to their world of origin. A fading memory of home is considered one of the average guardsman's most constant companions. Command structure. The Astra Militarum is ultimately run by the Departmento Munitorum, who have 3 seats on the Council of the High Lords of Terra. It provides all the supplies, equipment, training, and also some of the representatives sent to worlds with an Astra Militarum presence. Each world compares the threat posed to them against a previously defined threat level, and if it is deemed dangerous enough, the threat is passed to the subsector level and troops from surrounding worlds may be mobilized. If the threat increases further, a full-scale request to the sector level can see hundreds of worlds mobilizing and converging on one system or group of systems. However, this process is notoriously slow and inefficient due to the size and scope of the Imperium and its bureaucracy. A plea for aid may not be acted on for months, years, or even decades. As a result, cries for reinforcements can go unheeded for eons, and fleets often arrive to find that the planet they were sent to aid has long since been destroyed. Regimental structure. The regiment is the primary unit of the Astra Militarum. Recruited from a single planet at a single raising, it is founded as a complete entity, complete with its own officer, supply, and support cadres. It should be noted, however, that like most everything else in the Guard, the precise details of even these essential elements can vary widely from world to world. Whilst the majority of the regiment, even the non-combatant personnel, will come from their founding world, the commissars assigned to it are always off-worlders. An Astra Militarum regiment is essentially a temporary unit, unlike the Space Marine chapters. After being formed, they normally receive no further reinforcements. If any regiment survives for long enough, it can eventually receive reinforcements from children born to the guardsmen who have been raised inside the regiment and can normally be expected to join it upon reaching the required age. When reinforcement does not occur, for whatever reason, regiments may find themselves gradually depleted through casualties until they are destroyed in battle or mustered out for meritorious service. If a regiment has been so badly mauled that it is considered a waste of time and resources to combine it with other Imperial forces, they may be assigned garrison duties on a nearby world, usually the very same planet they have been fighting over. The safety of the world and its population becomes the duty of the regiment's remnants. Regiments are typically raised with a strength of several thousand soldiers, but the precise numbers can vary enormously. The Valhallan 18th Tundra Wolves consists of over 120,000 men, whilst the Vostroyan 24th Iron Bloods armored comprised less than 1,500 tank crewmen. Some planets are able to raise a variety of regiments. CADIA or Armageddon, for example, are huge worlds embroiled in seemingly endless wars whose populace are given ample opportunity to train in various aspects of warfare. By comparison, other worlds take great and often justifiable pride in their reputation for training a specific kind of regiment to exceptional standards. The pale-skinned, dark-eyed stealth infantry of the Night World Prometheron or the clockwork discipline of the Calatian artillery brigades are excellent examples of this. Feral or feudal worlds, on the other hand, often provide only infantry or rough rider regiments, thus circumventing a huge potential culture shock. My top regiments are Armageddon Steel Legion, native to the hive world of Armageddon. True to its name, Armageddon has been the site of 3 massive battles in the history of the Imperium, most recently a pair of invasions by the Orc warboss Gazkul Thraka. As a result, the armies of Armageddon are very skilled in fighting orcs. The hive world of Armageddon, like most of its ilk, consists of huge ash wastes choked with toxic pollutants and corrosive chemicals. Some regions of the planet consist of jungles and oceans, but the pervasive effects of industrial pollution are inescapable outside of the world's great hive cities, teeming with humanity. Armageddon's hive cities are not simply manufacturing centers, they are also packed with the crowded workers and overseers necessary to keep the massive industrial complex running. These conditions give rise to a seemingly endless series of savage gang wars that erupt regularly amongst the underclasses on Armageddon. Many recruits into the Steel Legions are taken directly from veterans of these brutal struggles for dominance of the Underhive, as only the fiercest and most implacable gangers manage to survive and even thrive upon the carnage. The Guardsmen of the Steel Legion wear uniforms that include a mustard yellow greatcoat, gas masks to protect themselves from Armageddon's toxic environment, and rounded helmets over black infantry fatigues. Parts of the uniform are drawn from the British Army's infantry uniform in World War I and the German paratroops of World War II. CADIAN shock troopers, originally from the fortress world of Cadia before its destruction. Located at the edge of the Eye of Terror, Cadia formed the first line of defense against chaos incursions, such as the Black Crusades. Because of this, Cadia was one of the most strategically important planets in the galaxy, and the entire population was militarized to some degree. For 10,000 standard years Cadia endured the constant assaults of the forces of chaos from within the Eye and remained unbowed and unconquered until Abaddon the Despoiler unleashed his 13th Black Crusade. This history of unending threat from the archenemy bred a world of warriors who are still known to possess unsurpassed discipline and skill, and whose Astra Militarum regiments stand as examples to the rest of the Imperial Guard and mankind. In the wake of the fall of Cadia, the remnants of the Imperial Navy's battle fleet Cadia and the CADIAN shock troops who managed to escape the destruction of their homeworld managed to make it through the roiling warp to the Agrippina system under the command of Admiral d'Armitage and General Maximus Octavian Gruber III. They discovered that system already under assault by multiple warbands of Chaos Space Marines, including one drawn from the Sons of Malice, who held a particular grudge against Cadians for their role in the destruction of the heretic Astartes' homeworld of Celis. The conflict eventually resulted in an Imperial victory with the arrival of the other remaining portion of Battle Fleet Cadia under the command of Admiral d'Armitage and reinforcements from the Space Wolves. The TALLARN Desert Raiders. Once a fertile, verdant agri-world, TALLARN was devastated with virus bombs during Horus Heresy by the Iron Warriors Traitor Legion. Only a few pockets of survivors in subterranean shelters. When the Iron Warriors descended from orbit they encountered savage resistance from those who had survived, braving the surface in armored vehicles that would protect them from the virus-infested air. The TALLARN Desert Raiders soldiers are highly skilled at desert and mobile armored warfare. They are mobile guerrilla fighters, evasive and opportunistic. They love to strike a killing blow at the heart of an enemy formation before returning to their own lines, prepared to pounce once more. Once the enemy is sighted, the TALLARN will stalk them closely, relying on their practiced marksmanship and lightning-quick, curved combat knives to achieve victory. The Battle of TALLARN versus the Iron Warriors remains to this day the single largest tank engagement in the history of the Imperium. Millions of vehicles engaged in battle trough this conflict. To counter the Iron Warriors, the TALLARN people quickly mastered guerrilla tactics, striking fast and vanishing beneath the sands, only to engage elsewhere. In time, the Iron Warriors withdrew from the world that had been so costly to them, and the people of TALLARN were given the opportunity to rebuild. To this day, the TALLARN have a particularly fearsome reputation for armored warfare, and their tank crews are rightly feared. The Death Corps of KRIEG is the name given to all of the Astra Militarum regiments that originate from the devastated, post-nuclear death world of KRIEG in the Segmentum Tempestus. KRIEG was the site of a rebellion against the Imperium of Man over 1,500 standard years ago in the 40th millennium and was bombarded with nuclear weapons, followed by 500 Terran years of grinding warfare to purge the heretical rebels. After all those years of nuclear destruction and bitter trench warfare, KRIEG was reduced to a scorched, radioactive husk of a world composed of dust and mud whose surviving people were forced to retreat into underground hive cities to survive the toxic planetary environment. The Death Corps are similar to the Armageddon Steel Legion in the appearance of their uniform and equipment, but they make use of darker colors, and their masks usually have a skull motif. Of all the Militarum regimentos of the Astra Militarum, they are the most fatalistic, both in appearance and in spirit, due to the 500 standard years of civil war in a nuclear wasteland that the inhabitants of their homeworld inflicted on themselves. Notoriously grim and fatalistic warriors, they seek to atone for their planet's past rebellion by dying glorious deaths in service to the Imperium. For this purpose, Death Corps regiments routinely request to fight in the galaxy's deadliest war zones, grinding their enemy down through long battles of attrition and siege warfare. By order of the High Lords of Terra, KRIEG's sole purpose is to produce new regiments, and its tithes are the maximum possible for the planet's population, supplying over 50 million men per year. VOSTROYAN Firstborn, Reist from Vostroya, world in the Halo Zone beyond the Eye of Terror, which swore allegiance to Mars during the Age of Strife. It is now ruled by a committee of Techtriarchs, a mix of Mechanicus Magi and more traditional imperial planetary government. During the Horus Heresy, Vostroya refused to provide regiments to the Emperor, preferring instead to reserve the population in the Manufactoria blanketing the world. After the heresy, the Vostroyans, out of guilt, agreed to supply every family's firstborn son to service with the Imperial Guard. They have very archaic appearance compared to the rest of the Imperial Guard. Their weapons are passed down from firstborn to firstborn and are usually worth more than the Guardsmen who carry them. Due to Vostroya's governing committee being composed of Adeptus Mechanicus officials as well as Imperial commanders, Vostroyan uniforms tend to incorporate red, the color of Mars, and cyber augmentation amongst their ranks. The weapons they carry to war and mount on their vehicles are not mass-produced, but exquisitely handcrafted by military artisans. Vostroyan firstborn regiments are trained in the frozen, snow and ash-covered ruins of the planet's ancient cityscapes, on portions of their homeworld no longer habitable or functional, before being shipped out, once each generation, to serve the Imperium, never to return. Unusually, the firstborn reinforce their regiments, sending new soldiers out to each one, no matter how far away it is or how difficult providing these reinforcements will prove to be. This ensures that the youngest members of the firstborn have the experience of hardened veterans to draw upon during combat, and that every Vostroyan firstborn regiment can trace its existence back to their original mustering, 10,000 Terran years before, and many young Vostroyans have found themselves under the guardianship of distant uncles, aunts, and older cousins, something that encourages a strong bond of comradeship. MORDIAN Iron Guard, originally from the planet MORDIAN, a harsh and unforgiving planet given to extremes, it was ruled in the Emperor's name by a body known as the Tetrarchs. The rule of the Tetrarchs was harsh, autocratic and above all absolute, a necessity due to planet's scarce and strictly rationed resources. This environment bred a regimental system dedicated to the chain of command and an iron discipline at all levels. The MORDIAN Iron Guard are named and renowned for their iron resolve and their dour and unforgiving natures. As of the formation of the Dark Imperium, the planet of MORDIAN had been assailed by chaos. The MORDIAN Iron Guard regiments marched to war in bright colors and ornate uniforms. Some enemies of the Emperor have been misled by the sight of the Iron Guard, believing they were fighting amateurs or ceremonial troops, only to find tough, determined, professional soldiers. Upon each regiment's founding, a lavish banner, created within Mordian's tetrarchal palace, is presented to the regiment in a parade ground ceremony during which every Iron Guard trooper swears an oath to never let the colors fall in battle or be captured by the enemy. The vehicles and troops of Mordian Iron Guard regiments proudly display an Iron Eagle emblem in addition to their regular platoon, company and army markings, reminding the Mordians to enforce the Emperor's steely discipline throughout the Imperium. Every regiment is specialized in one particular form of war, so the Imperial Guard are at their strongest when multiple regiments are massed together, and is itself another deliberate structure to ensure that large-scale rebellion by a military commander is difficult to organize. It does not matter the number of casualties it may take to win a battle. The Imperial Guard will devote many thousands of men to overcome a small goal as the Space Marines would devote a few hundred. Obviously, a Guardsman could never possess the battle prowess of a Space Marine, but there are many millions of Guardsmen for just that one Space Marine. That's all for today's episode of Warhammer 40k meets AI. I hope you enjoyed listening about the Astra Militarum. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Thank you for watching and see you next time.